Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Coach Dub, got Ian Boyd. It's a Saturday Roundtable. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 8,000 subscribers. We are on our way and would love your help in that process. Today, we are going to have a little bit of an expansion draft of sorts. If every roster in the SEC was unprotected, who would you want to add to the Texas Longhorns? I have my ideas. Coach Dub and Ian have their ideas. We'll talk a little bit about that. Make sure you head to Inside Texas. Use the promo code IT1. That'll get you 2 months of Inside Texas premium access for just $1. You're going to get intel on a lot of the official visitors at Texas this weekend, next weekend, the week after. You'll have intel on off-season training, and that'll get you just about to the start of training camp or a little bit into training camp. So no better time to join up as well. Coach, I know when you were at UNLV, the transfer portal was crazy, and maybe you had to deal with tampering every now and then. But the idea of an expansion draft wasn't something that y'all had to think about, and maybe protecting players on the roster.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, after having a good season, and you had a bunch of teams maybe try to poach and come after some guys who had great seasons. So coming from that side of things, it's a bit different, right? When people are trying to grab your players versus you're the team grabbing them and drafting who you want and trying to make your team better. So uh, I've seen it from the other side. It's it can be stressful, but at the same time, I get it.
Ian, so when I wrote this just the other day, I went by on every SEC team, and my criteria was very subjective, very open ended. It could have been to address a need, maybe at Texas, maybe to add a best player available, maybe to really just stick a knife right in the stomach, or just for the laughs. And I think there's a couple on that front we'll get to, but if you're trying to pluck one player maybe from SEC teams, what are you thinking to add to Texas roster, just kind of in a practical sense?
I think number one is a big old nose tackle to play next to Alfred Collins and all these other athletes they got that are maybe not like real anchors, but have potential if they could play next to a guy that'll eat blocks. So that's the first thing I did is I just tried to think of who's the best nose guard Texas could go get, where the defense is now. Run defense goes from being, we think it'll be pretty good, to, okay, it's don't even worry about it.
I have four. I think I have three people who fit that bill. One who's kind of in a outside, defensive end role in that, but I picked three, but I didn't want to overdo that because I knew that was probably going to be the popular decision. But let's go in alphabetical order. And the first one I chose was at Alabama. I went with a linebacker. I went with Deontay Lawson, Alabama's linebacker. I think he was number 33 last season. In the picture from A Day, he is wearing number 0. Texas isn't hurting at linebacker, obviously, with Anthony Hill and David Benda there. And I had the idea maybe to grab Ryan Williams and ruin Kalen DeBoer's big recruiting win, or Jamarian Miller and defend Justin Wells' East Texas honor. But I went with Deontay Lawson. Ian, linebacker's not a place where Texas is hurting, but it's also a place where, hey, if you can add someone like Lawson, that would definitely help a lot.
So in the show prep for this one, the first thing I did was make sure I knew who Alabama's starting nose tackle was. And I was like, that's where I'm going to go get my nose tackles from Alabama. So I had Tim Keenan here. I guess you picked some other guys that we'll get to later. Lawson, you would feel better if you were at Texas. You'd feel better. It'd be like Hill's, maybe not Hill's athleticism, but something close to Hill's athleticism with Benda's experienced mind, and that'd be nice. That'd be helpful.
Coach, is linebacker where you saw myself going, or if you're thinking about this current Crimson Tide roster, who might you be picking off?
I'm definitely somebody who plays in the front 5 or 6. It had to be a defensive lineman or a linebacker. Someone for just versatility. But I mean, that's not a bad pick, right? Somebody with experience who can fly to the ball, who doesn't have to come off the field. Like, you can't have too many of those guys, if you ask me. So that's not a bad pick. But I was more on the end side of things? Like, hey, trying to find me a nose tackle or defensive lineman who can just get out to the quarterback and play the run.
Not. I'm very curious to see what Kane Womack does there, moving from South Alabama to Alabama. But Deontay Lawson is my pick. We will go to Arkansas, and fellas, this is not a strong roster. There's some issues in Fayetteville, but if you're thinking about the Razorbacks, you think a lot about O line and Sam Pittman. They portaled guys in. They portaled some Mountain West guys and guys over. They have Bobby Petrino there now. If you just kind of think about the Arkansas roster, Ian, is there anybody that comes to mind aside from Taylon Green?
Landon Jackson, because Texas really only has one Jack that we know for sure can be a strong side end, and Barron Sorrell. Probably Ethan Burke can do it too, but we haven't seen it yet. So I'd go get Landon Jackson. They already got his little brother to come in the future. Is that what you did?
That's what I did. Landon Jackson, I think, would be ready-made at Jack, like you said. You feel good, but you'd feel great if you added Landon. I think he's going to be a guy competing for first-team All-SEC honors. And, Coach, it'd be pretty funny. There's not going to be any crossover between him and Lance at the next level unless something, hopefully, that something – there's not going to be any crossover. But, man, it'd be a funny story, and that'd be quite a way to get a really talented player and really shore up the defense.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been my pick from Arkansas as well. And like you said, unless something happens, he wouldn't play with his brother. But, man, that guy can do it all as far as getting after the quarterback, rushing the passer, and setting the edge versus the run. Like, that's a guy, like Ian said, not having a true Jack. Like, with that much versatility and athleticism, man, I would love to have him. But, hey, I get it. Now we got to face him. So
we move on to Auburn. And, Ian, you talked a lot about how there's some schools in the SEC specifically who are really, pushing their chips all in. That's Ole Miss. Texas is definitely in that category. Georgia can kind of do it every year. Tennessee may be on the precipice of it with Nico. Auburn's not there yet, but there's still some talent. Hugh Freeze is building. Is there anybody you're thinking of adding there from the Tigers?
Can you take coaches?
Yeah, you can.
I would take Hugh Freeze in his bed and put him up in the booth as an analyst for Texas. This is what you did.
That's not what I did. Coach, who are you thinking of? Because Texas saw some players leave for Auburn. Auburn also beat Texas for some defensive linemen in the 2024 cycle. But is there anybody from the Tigers who really is kind of standing out to you right now?
Big Keldrick Falk. Guy's almost 6'7", and 280, man, but he's athletic freak, right? Along the line, I know we got a trend here of defensive linemen, but like you can't have too many of them. So that's who I would have went with from Auburn.
Well, I like the eye candy. I went with Cam Coleman. I feel like that if you're looking for a wide receiver, that's going to be the guy who's going to lead Auburn in the coming years when they decide to go all in. Quarterback, that's a different issue there. I thought about Rivaldo Fairweather, an FIU transfer who acquitted himself well at tight end, but I went ahead and went with the 5-star. It's not hard to go ahead and see that that's the pick. Before we keep on going, got to give a little thanks to Laura Baker, who is funny enough hiding Ian, even though she really helped Ian, part of the Andy Allen elite team. She has helped a bunch of Longhorns, including our own Ian Boyd, find houses in Central Texas. Give her a call at 512-784-0505. And Ian, you'll be heading this direction soon with thanks to Laura.
Yeah, I've got boxes all over the place. We're moving next week, and I cannot wait to get into this new home. We were able to get a bigger home right down the road from a really good school where I will have children attending for the next 10 years. Wife got a job at the school, half a mile away, playground, pool. It's perfect. It took a long time to find, but she helped us so much to narrow our search down and figure out where to be. And man, I cannot wait to be doing one of these from the new house.
512-784-0505 for Laura Baker. Fellas, let's keep it moving. We move on to Florida. This one I think is pretty short because it's not like we think a lot of the Florida roster. But Coach, if you're picking one Gator, who are you going with?
Oh man, Big fan of this kid and being from the state of Texas, right? DJ Lagway.
Yeah, I don't think it needs much explanation. That's my pick as well. Texas is really high on Trey Owens, obviously. But this one for me was a little bit for the laughs because let's say something happened to Graham Mertz, or let's say something didn't happen to Graham Mertz. Billy Napier can point to DJ Lagway and say, hey, this is the future. If you get rid of me, you're getting rid of the future. If you take that away, then in this hypothetical draft, you're making life tough on Billy Napier. Ian, do you expect to see much of Lagway this year, or is this going to be, Mertz until it isn't?
Oh, I think we might, because he's kind of if Napier feels like he's going to get fired, then you put Lagway out there and be like, don't fire me. You need me to make the most of this guy. I will say this, not to try to generate headlines or anything. This is going to be pretty cheap, but hypothetically, Texas wins the national championship. Sark is like, this is great, but now I just got a job offer to be the next head coach of the 49ers or somebody, right? He bails. Arch Manning bails. Who would you, and then maybe the next Texas coach is somebody that wants to get back to running the quarterback around a little bit. All of a sudden, you're going to wish DJ Lagway was on the roster, right? Now, probably none of that happens. So, irrelevant, but he's talented, so.
Please welcome Texas head coach Billy Napier. No, I'm just joking. Coach, you had talked a lot about before we started recording Georgia, and you had a list of guys who you thought would be good picks from Athens. Who are some of some of the candidates, and if you had to pick one of them, who would it be?
I go big Michael Williams. Like, he flashed a lot as a freshman in the national championship. Getting a couple sacks. Then he had a great sophomore year. I think it's probably going to be a high draft pick coming this next year. Just another true jack, but he can probably play 3-tech, but he's athletic. He's big. He can run and move, man. It's just, you don't see too many of those guys who can do that. And so I would say Michael Williams, number 13.
It sounds like someone who would fit in not only in the nickel defense, but maybe the base defense as well. Ian, do you have a pick on the Bulldogs?
I want that linebacker that pushed out DeMoss Johnson. Is it Xavier Soray?
I'm not sure, but I know they pushed, like you mentioned, they pushed him out, and he went to Kentucky because they felt fine about what they had in Athens.
They got this guy that's their next Roquan Smith or N'Kobe Dean. I think it's Xavier Soray, but I'm not sure. I'd want that guy. That guy's, if you put that guy next to Anthony Hill, and you got Stu going.
Coach went first level. You went second level. I went third level. Let's get Malachi Starks there. I mean, he's a consensus All-American. If you're not, familiar maybe with the Kirby Smart defense, they are known even amongst professional circles for doing a lot of very advanced stuff. And he's a guy who is a ringleader of that defense. They may not reach that 2021 defense or that 2022 defense, but don't be surprised if you see a really, really talented Bulldog team headed to Austin. And if I could grab somebody off the Bulldogs for the Longhorns, I would go ahead and pick Malachi Starks. Next up, we have Kentucky. And Ian, I think this one is when you were talking about nose tackles. This is where you find the nose tackle. I don't think there's much to really hide with this one. Kentucky's good, but a big reason they are good is because of Deion Walker there in the middle, wearing number 0 as well. That's always a fun aspect to it.
Yeah. I honestly, either of their two dudes would probably start at Texas. So just give me either of them. But this is the better one. He had I think he didn't lead the team in sacks last year, and he's like 340 pounds. Yeah.
Any objection, Coach? Did you? You're not going to overlook a 6'6", 348 guy, are you?
No, not at all, man. And hit this one right on the nail. No, that's who I'm going with too. Easy choice.
Easy consensus there for Kentucky. All right, next up, our neighbors to the east, LSU. An important year there for Brian Kelly and the rest of the rework staff. Ian, I know there's a semi-controversial player that might be a pick. I'm wondering if that's the direction you're leaning.
No way. how to use Harold Perkins can remain LSU's problem. I would not be interested. But boy, I don't know exactly. They have some safeties that are really good that I'd be interested in. I would probably just try to do a best player available. I don't know if they have anyone that fits a specific hole at Texas. Maybe you found one.
Coach, do you got anybody from the Tigers you can think of?
Oh man, I got two, but look, if Cowboys can find a role for Michael Parsons, I can find one for Harold Perkins. I'm sorry, man. There's no substitute trying to get to the quarterback. I'll just let him come off the edge and go at it. I don't know. That would be my pick.
I like Perkins. He was an honorable mention of mine, as was C.J. Daniels, who was the Liberty wide receiver that Texas kicked the tires on. But Ian, like you mentioned, best player available, I went with Will Campbell. And I know that Texas is in great shape with Kelvin Banks at left tackle. And I think they're going to be in really good shape with Cam Williams at right tackle. But if you had Will Campbell, then you're looking at maybe one of the best offensive lines in the country at that juncture.
Yeah. Let's not talk about who would play right or left though.
That's going to be a controversial discussion, but we'll keep on going. Hopefully, I didn't ruin it with who I scrolled by. But Ole Miss is up next. Coach, we talked about how they're pushing in the portal, and I'm wondering if you're looking at somebody who either moved to Oxford or maybe was in Oxford from the start when thinking about the Rebels.
I'm definitely going to go with somebody who moved to Oxford, played for, I guess we can call little brother in East Texas a little bit. Vic Nolan. That would probably be the pick for me at D tackle.
Who they got a tight end these days? I have a feeling they have a tight end that would fit into the Jatavian Sanders role pretty well. They got like Michael Trigg, and I think they got somebody else that was even a more frequent target. But they don't block that much with their tight ends because they run so much RPOs, quarterback run, and stuff. But that tight end would fit well as just the second tight end in the offense when they want to get into 12 personnel.
I think Trigg is who that is, but I'm with Coach here. Just go get Walter Nolan, get that big guy in the
middle. No Aggies allowed.
But he's not one. He's a rebel now, so that problem is alleviated. Moving on, we can go over this one quickly. Mississippi State. It's going to be a very strange first year for Jeff Lebby. It's a lot of breaking things down to the studs because you go from Mike Leach to a weird decisions by Zach Arnett and now Lebby and former Longhorn assistant Ian. I may need an assist on what his name. Coleman Hutzler is there as defensive coordinator. Is there anybody that really stands out to either of y'all from the Bulldogs? No, I'm guessing.
I would take Hutzler back in some capacity. He was a good coach.
He was a really good linebackers coach and in a tough situation in that 2020 rework defense. Maybe I should have thought about that. I went with DeMonte Russell. He's a defensive lineman, probably an end in a 3-down front. Still, it's not like they have a bunch of great things going on there now, and I think Lebby took that job understanding that, but he's a good player. He's who I might want to think to grab. We move to a former Big 12 team, former SEC East team, and a team that's looking to make a lot of noise and made a lot of noise in the portal over the course of the past few months in Missouri. And I think there's a lot of great runner-up options, but Coach, I think option number one is pretty evident when you're looking at the Missouri Tigers.
Oh, man, that's tough. I'm going straight Mookie Cooper there, or Luther Burden, either or. I don't know. You can take both of them, or maybe Burden over Cooper, but yeah, you can kind of stick him anywhere on the field and get him the ball. So let's go Burden over Cooper.
I hadn't thought about Mookie Cooper, but yeah, I went with Luther Burden. I chose him over, Theo Weiss, who's going to have a good year. Mookie Cooper, obviously, Toriano Pride. There's some talent there, but Burden's kind of the one that makes it all go in the end.
Yeah.
I feel like I said, clear number one on this one, can move right along. All right. Oklahoma. They made some additions in the portal. It is year 3 for Brent Venables. You could go the funny route and, steal Jackson Arnold and, leave him on the bench, or you could maybe grab one of their wide receivers. They just got Deion Burks from Purdue. Ian, as someone who studies up the Sooners quite well, if you could pluck one player from Oklahoma to add to Texas roster, who would it be?
Well, he's not going to be allowed on the Texas roster. We're just pulling him out and then getting him a bus ticket to go to a different conference. But not because he's not a good player, but my goal would be to do maximal damage to Oklahoma. And the way I would do that is Nick Anderson. I know Burks is maybe going to get more targets, be the featured receiver, but Burks is a slot guy. I mean, like last year they had Drake Stoops doing work in the slot. It's not as hard to find somebody to do damage in the slot. Nick Anderson is a big, fast outside dude who quietly had crazy stats last year. I'm not afraid of Jackson Arnold. They can have him. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about the guy that you picked. They can have him too. Pull out Nick Anderson, though, and I think that would actually be a big load-bearing support structure in their team for this coming year.
I'm surprised you went offense. Coach, what do you think on that one?
I like the idea of giving somebody a bus ticket and kind of sending it on their way. So I'll do Dominique Williams. Take him to say, here's a bus ticket. There you go. You chose
That's what I did. You have him. No, you have him.
Yeah.
I think that'd be funny. Again, some of this is for the laughs, for the fun of it, and seeing Dominic Williams go back and forth again, and address, Texas at defensive tackle would be mine. I'm surprised neither of y'all mentioned Billy Bowman in this one, the safety for the Sooners. Ian, you shrugged your shoulders. Don't think that would be as much of a debilitating hit as Nick Anderson would be?
No. I mean, he's good. Their defense will be good. I think their defense is kind of like they have a lot of really solid players up and down the defensive roster. I don't know if there's like a single guy that would like cripple them unless they have one guy in particular that ends up putting it together as a pass rusher, and then you took that guy away. But I don't even know exactly who that would be. So I want to take Nick Anderson, take away Jackson Arnold's safety blanket, and see what happens.
Speaks to your emphasis on outside receivers. Moving to South Carolina, I don't know a bunch of guys on South Carolina. I know Spencer Rattler is on the Saints. I know they've recruited decently well in the portal. But I feel like this one's really easy. And can y'all name one player on South Carolina?
No, because we don't play. Texas doesn't play them this year, so I haven't done my due diligence yet.
I'll give you a guess. One is 242 pounds. One is also a potential member of the 200-meter team for the U.S. Olympic team heading to Paris. It's actually the same person. It's Nick Harbour, who is competing to join, and I have it mislabeled. He's actually a wide receiver. He's competing to be a part of the 200-meter sprint team at the U.S. Olympics. He is a freak athlete, and South Carolina has not lacked for incredible athletes. There's some promising edge rushers coming up through the ranks in Columbia, but this guy may be the best athlete in college football this year if he's able to sprint and make a Olympic team while also playing SEC football.
I thought he was drafted. I thought he was drafted. Maybe he wasn't even eligible yet.
No, he's. They asked Shane Beamer the other day if he could balance training camp and the Paris Olympics. Just kind of speaks to the special one. I think that's what made this one real easy for me. Moving on to Tennessee, a very interesting roster this year for Josh Heupel. They have some really quality players. They have a new quarterback, but Tennessee, Ian, where are you thinking on stealing from the Vols?
Maybe Pierce off the edge. I'm not totally sure if he's better than Trey Moore because we haven't seen Trey Moore in the SEC yet. But I think that would be the best value pick and maybe an upgrade for Texas.
I like that one. Coach, guess where James Pierce was ranked? On3 had a recent ranking of the top 100 players in college football this year. Guess where Pierce was?
Yeah. Maybe top 20?
How about top 1?
Top 1.
That's what they had him as. Yeah, I see what you mean, though. He's a little bit slighter than you would expect for an edge guy to be. And, it would be kind of funny. Y'all are forgetting about Brew McCoy. Get him back for a second tour of duty with the Longhorns. But I like this one for Tennessee. Just get a really talented guy. But it's not like Texas is lacking at edge, especially there on the weak side. We got
Should
two more.
get Brew McCoy, but then give him a bus ticket back to USC.
No, make him go to UCLA just to complete a full cycle. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt so we can save the Aggies for last. Is there any player or any coach y'all would grab from the Commodores?
I'm trying to think of the safety's name. He's like 6'4". I can't think of his last name. He's a big kid.
I know who you're talking about.
They got two safeties, matter of fact. They're really, really good. They're like really talented, but cannot think of their name. CJ Moore, I want to say. CJ Taylor. Sorry, CJ Taylor. Safety of Vandy. Saw him up close and personal last year. He can play.
I was going to say Diego Pavia just for I don't know, the red zone or something, just for fun. But I'd rather have that guy and maybe try to build a dime package around him. That Coach Dub's choice.
They've had some really good safeties in the past couple of years. They have Jerry Kill, which is an interesting development. I just went with Clark Lee just because y'all are trying to scrounge y'all's head for players. I can't think of any players. I think Lee is trying to make the most of a rough situation in Nashville, just because any good player they have ends up transferring to another roster. COVID did them no favors because it's hard to get into grad school at Vanderbilt, just like it's hard to get into grad school at Rice and Stanford. So you saw a lot of those guys who had the extra year of playing eligibility get their degree and then be like, hey, I'd like in grad school. And that's no easy task. I think I would take I think Vanderbilt I think Clark Lee would jump at the opportunity to help out at Texas in some form or fashion. Saved, as Coach said, little brother out east for last. The A&M roster was drastically altered after Jimbo Fisher left and Mike Elko came back. But there is still some talent on that roster, and they have a favorable schedule. Ian, from the Aggies, who would you get to make the very rare A&M to Texas flip?
This is an easy one. So easy. The Texas A&M coaching search was really fun to observe, but it just wasn't long enough. So I'm taking Mike Elko, and then I want to watch them scramble to find another coach again. And Inside Texas will benefit tremendously from everybody hitting refresh on the Aggie updates thread, just laughing and making jokes. So please give me more of that.
Maybe they could actually get Mark Stoops this time. Coach, any selections from the Aggie roster?
Yeah, let's stay with the coaching staff. I'm going to go Joe Hamilton. I'm going to take all the recruiting away. Yeah, come add that to Texas, make it even more powerful.
Florida had some inroads in Texas, and a lot of it was due to Joe Hamilton, who I believe he's been with Napier for a long time, dating back to ULL days, or Louisiana as they prefer it to be called. I feel like I made a pretty easy decision though with Bryce Anderson at safety. I know that they have the Shamars on the defensive line. I know that I'm forgetting the name of the linebacker from Temple that had a really quality season last year. I think Bryce would be a quality addition to the Longhorn defense. And, other than that, I'm trying to think like maybe you get Reuben Owens and add him to an already really strong running back room. But I can't think of very many other guys except for maybe the Shamars to look at when it comes to the defensive side of the ball.
Or David Hicks at tackle. But I have a no Aggie Sooner policy, so it's bus ticket for anybody that comes, and I'm going to give that to Elko.
I like that. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this little bit of a thought exercise. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. Please like the video, subscribe to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. If you use the promo code IT1, you can get 2 months of premium access on Inside Texas for just $1. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Laura Baker. Make sure that you give her a call at 512-784-0505. Coach Ian, thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.